Hi, everybody. Welcome to the elvex Context webinar. We're going to get started in about 20 more seconds, just as people start to join. So you have Allison Blanda here. I lead AI enablement here at elvex, along with Miles, who leads product design. So we're going to give it another 10 more seconds, and then we're going to hop right in. Okay, on that note, let's get going. Okay, I'll reintroduce myself and say hello, everybody, and welcome to the elvex Context webinar. I am Allison Blanda. I lead AI enablement here at elvex, and I'm joined by Miles, who leads our product design. Miles is going to kick us off and walk us through the way that elvex thinks about the concept of context. And then I am going to take over and show you how that concept is being implemented into your work within elvex. So with that,
Allison, we're getting a comment that there's severe echo. So I'm going to ask that when one person is speaking, the other.
okay. So with that, I will mute and then hand it over to Miles.
Sweet. Thanks, Allison. And let's get to the bottom of that echo thing. Yep. So as Allison mentioned, I'm going to give a quick little bit of context on context. We'll talk a little bit about planning, delegation, power tools, and show also an introduction to scheduling and action auto approval. But before we do that, let me talk a little bit about context. So what is context? Context is everything else that gets sent to the AI model in addition to your prompt. Not all the words you send directly, but the other words that surround those words that give the model the information it needs to give an accurate answer. We think about context at elvex as four things. Transparent, meaning you can see it and understand how it's operating. Simple, you can read through it just like a normal document. Editable, you can change it. And collaborative, your whole team benefits from it. Looking at this quick slide to explain the concept, basically, without context, an AI model has to go back and forth with you a bunch to figure out what it is it needs to do for you. And with context, because the model knows, oh, these are the kinds of reports that Miles looks for, and this is the information that needs to be in those reports, it can just get right to work and deliver you the work you're looking for. At elvex, we think about context as being layered. We think of conversations with an AI model as representing tasks you need done. And with every task, there's a project that's associated with it. There's also a user who owns that project. And then a few more layers all the way up to the company that the project is inside of. We really think about context as driving outcomes. So we've designed our context to turn vague requests into actual work. Reduce cognitive load on the user, so removing the need to repeat a bunch of information every time you need to get a task done, and also reducing the tool juggling that you have to do to get AI to help you with your work by recording what tools you use so that the agents know this already. Our context ensures consistency, and it makes our AI proactive as opposed to reactive. And with that, I'm going to hand it back over to Allison, who's going to show you a little bit of this thing in the tool directly.
Okay, let's take over. And this is pre-recorded, but Miles and I are live, and so we're going to talk you through this. And I'm going to say, welcome to our elvex demo environment, where we've actually set up multiple personas of a gentleman named Hari, who works for Airbnb for work. We have CEO Hari, a finance Hari, a salesperson named Hari, and today we're going to be working as Hari, who is a product marketer. And so now under your personal icon in elvex, you're going to see a new panel toast out that wasn't there 2 weeks ago. What you're seeing now is your new context home base. Through the next little bit, we'll run through how each one of these tiles impacts your experience, but let's start with company context, which everyone can see, but is controlled by the administrators of your account. The goal of company context is to have a completely unified background to elvex and give it your company's mission and vision and way of working. So no matter what LLM your team member is using or what agent they're working with, there's a North Star of why you're all there, and that's understood by the AI. So what should you put in there? I'll scroll past some of the obvious sections like product and value proposition and market position to some less obvious ones. The first one is competitive landscape. Uh, and this may not seem obvious, especially highlighting your perceived weaknesses, but think about it. If you've a salesperson making a cold call agent, or a finance person working on headcount, or a marketing person working on new battle cards, isn't it important that all agents have a unified understanding of your weaknesses? I'm going to scroll down to enablement and tools. Not obvious, but potentially a huge win. Tell Alvex to always use the same domain for your CRM asks, or tell Alvex to know that HubSpot is for marketing and Monday.com is for project management tasks. It allows your team members to be more vague in their asks, and Alvex can still get it right. And then finally, finishing up with my personal favorite, which may not seem obvious, but visual identity. Users can make slides, generate PDFs, and generate images all in Elvex. And so company context is a great way to help control that. Now, admins, you might be feeling a lot of pressure of what to put in company context. Let me eliminate that for you by highlighting version history. So if you want to add or subtract something and it's not doing what you want, you can quickly revert. That's true of all context, not just company. Okay, let's head into Hari's personal context. Uh, and this is an area that all users have. And the intent here is to fill out your goals, roles, and hurdles. But this is a very intimidating, big, empty space. And we don't want you to spend a lot of time setting this up. And so the first suggestion is to click on the voice to text and talk about yourself. And our second suggestion is to type into the box and have it tell you to interview you as a user to help fill this out. Now, I will call out that we have already done a lot of work in this account. And so Elvex already knows that Hari is a product marketing manager. And but it does have follow-up questions. And so what kind of work is Hari focused on? Is it content creation? Is it sales enablement? I am going to go with competitive intelligence and hit enter, and it's going to fill out this white space for me. The big thing to know is that Elvex will always ask you a few follow-up questions. I'm going to answer this one and say Navan and Hotels.com are the main competitive intelligence that I need to be worried about. Okay, let's put this into practice. Let's head to home and say that I need to finish a Q2 executive brief, make me a one-pager focusing on the asks and risks. Okay, we're going to close that, let that seem bigger. Elvex is going to create a to-do list based on what it knows about Hari and the way that his company works. As you're watching Elvex work, I want to call out the first to-do in the list is to look both at Salesforce data or use the Salesforce Pipeline agent. As it attempts to solve this task that I've asked, it will choose a direction that makes the most sense. So you can go to the Elvex home chat as a place to start your task, and Elvex, using context, will figure out the best way to solve a problem. Okay, voila, we have a brief ready for our executives. And so I have a few options. I can copy this. There we go. or I can download it. But I don't know if you saw that that was a .md file. I don't want a markdown file. I want a PDF. And so let's turn this into a PDF. And again, elvex is going to process this and quickly change my file format. Let's take a look at what this looks like. Great. And now I have the one click to download to a PDF. But harking back to that Salesforce Pipeline Analyst agent that was mentioned in the to-dos, how do I, as a user, make sure that if I come to just this agent, it has all the company and personal context that it needs? Okay, let's head straight into configurations. And you can scroll down to the context and data source section. And look, there's a beautiful button to enable user context. Okay, let's pause here and ask, when should I click this button versus not? The time that you should potentially not click this button is when you're using an agent to tightly control a process that spans multiple individuals. Like an example would be maybe a customer support knowledge base. But it's not negative to click this for every shared agent. In this case, this is a Salesforce Pipeline Analyst. So you can have one agent that every sales rep and marketing person can have their own personal context injected into. So if you're a BDR covering multiple reps, let's make sure that all of their pipelines are pulled in together into your pipeline analyst. You can kind of see where I'm going with this. While we're in configurations, let's talk about Power Tools, which is found actually under the Actions section of the configurations. Power Tools is the ability for an agent to output different file formats. This is exciting. You can do docs, spreadsheets, PDFs, but why I'm highlighting this to you is that when it's clicked, you cannot also use the web-like editing drafts experience. And so if you're going to be doing a lot of inline editing, perhaps select drafts over Power Tools. Okay, let's save and publish this. And then we'll head back to Hari's personal icon to check out those projects that we saw earlier. Now, one thing we know from the start of this is that Hari is in charge of competitive battle cards. Projects in elvex can be set up manually by the user, or as you work on the same thing again and again, elvex projects will start to show up. So Hari's project on competitive battle cards is filled with context about what he has to do on a regular basis to keep these battle cards updated. I am going to go back to my home chat and say that Hari needs to update these battle cards. Notice here what I'm going to do is something super powerful, and I'm going to just tell elvex to use a data source. In this case, it's the PMM playbook. You do not need to associate a data source with an agent. You can just call in a data source to work in the home chat at any point during your conversation or during a task. So I love that. I do it all the time. And I want to say that you can see it making a list of to-dos. It's looking at those PMM playbooks. It's going to call in a bunch of templates, which it knows it needs to use thanks to project context. And then the last part, the last step in the to-do list is going to generate those PowerPoint battle cards. Now that we have these two battle cards, I want to say, remember from the very beginning when I highlighted company context and visual identity, these are actually the colors that we told all of elvex to use when making company documents. So super powerful. I hope all of the admins on the call are very excited about this. Now that these have been created, I can download them as a PowerPoint or as a PDF, and we're off. Let's go back to Hari's personal context and see how it's changed as I've been working. So, yep, there we go. You can see here that elvex is helping itself and adding things to Hari's personal context, such as things like data sources and even data source IDs, things that users would never write themselves, but helps elvex make sure that it's targeted and gets it right again and again. And remember, this is totally editable, and you're able to see it updated at any point in time. Okay, let's switch gears a little bit, please, and hop into my personal elvex, because I want to show you something super exciting that you now have the ability to schedule an agent and or a flow and run it at a specific time, and then have that agent or flow send an email or post to Slack or Teams without you intervening. We're calling this auto approvals. Okay, admins, don't freak out. You have controls about this. Let's head into the admin settings first and click on integrations. And scroll down to Slack is going to be the example that we use today. I'm going to click on the cog, and you should all now see allow auto approvals in that setting. As an admin, I'm going to globally enable auto approvals to send messages and send direct messages. How does this show up for users? The user can now head into their personal icon, click on the gear, and head into integrations. And let's go now to Slack. They can see that they have been given the option to enable their agents or flows to do this and disable all, enable all. But there are two levels, one at the global admin level and one at the user level. And now let's look at Gmail as an example of something that where administrator has not given me carte blanche. I have only been given the ability here to auto approve sending an email from a conversation or flow. I cannot auto delete or create a draft automatically. So again, I just want to highlight that there is two levels of action here, from a global administrator level and from the user level. Okay, let's see this in practice. I'm going to head into my AI news agent. This is an agent that reads my inbox every morning and summarizes the AI news and tells me and summarizes and tells me what's hot and what I should be paying attention to. So when I head into configurations, how do I get this to post automatically? I am going to just come in here and add a rule that says after completing your task, send a message to the Slack channel elvex101. And then I'm going to come into actions and scroll all the way down to Slack and make sure that it has the two green icons and that specifically send message is green. Now, why am I doing this in integrations and not in Slack settings? This is a reminder that Slack settings and or team settings is where you give people access to call your agent from Slack or Teams. And the integration section is where you give your agent the ability to push to those to Slack or Teams. But I would be remiss if I didn't highlight to you that while we were in settings, you have the ability to duplicate. So if there is a agent that you would like to make your own, you can always come in and duplicate. But then let's head to schedule. Okay, let's create a new schedule. I'm going to call this my afternoon newsletter report. I'm going to type a prompt, and this is the prompt that will be given to the agent when it runs on the schedule. I'm going to choose my time. Probably not 3 a.m. Let's do 11 a.m. And then I'm just going to hit create. And now every day at 11 a.m. Eastern time, because I'm in Eastern time, it is going to run that prompt and then send my output to Slack. Okay, let's open Slack and see what it looked like yesterday. There we go. Voila, this is what it looked like yesterday. And so we know a lot of you have been asking for that, and we're super excited that this is here. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen, and I'm going to hand it back over to Miles, who probably has some thoughts on how you can leverage the context for context.
Very cool. Thanks, Allison. It was really cool to see you working through how elvex is making the experience of using AI better, especially the elvex agent orchestrating work with you across sessions using context. I think there are a couple of great questions in the chat right now about like how the context works with token consumption and threads. And actually, one of the great things about the way that we've built up context is that it can now work across each one of your threads. And so in some ways, it's actually saving a lot of tokens, which cuts down on saving a lot of tokens by cutting down on the amount of repetition you need to do inside of each thread. Um, the other piece that I think is really cool is using that context to work across data sources and subagents and power tools. So for those of you out in the audience experimenting with context, please have fun with it, right? Like see what you would like to carry between these threads, both at the company level and also for your own personal context. And in project context, you can see that work out really well where if there's a particular set of metrics that you pay attention to or specific project goals you have, you can just reference those directly with the elvex agent, and now it'll keep track of that stuff with you instead of you having to remember it and copy paste it back into the chat. I think that kind of last piece of showing the beginning of elvex becoming truly asynchronous is really exciting to me, and I'm sure that all of you are going to have some really sweet use cases. And for those of you watching, I'm very excited to hear about how your teams use context and the home agent and the scheduling workflows. I can see from the chat that folks are really excited about scheduling in particular. So
Yes. If I give you two calls to action in terms of context specifically, I would say please head into your personal context and ask it to interview you. You've probably been doing a ton of work in elvex already, and so it will be a short process. But it will do a lot of good. And then the second call is to please think about which agents that exist that your team is using that you should click that button, enable user context, because it will be super powerful and will potentially change the way that you interact with that agent for the better. Okay. With
awesome.
that, are there any other questions, Miles, that you've seen that we need to answer?
I think Doyle's been diligently hacking away at them in the chat, so I think we've got everything so far answered. With
Okay.
that,
With that,
go.
then we'll say thank you so much for coming today. We will be sharing this recording widely, and we look forward to seeing how you all take advantage of context and auto approvals. Have a good rest of your day, everybody. Thank you for coming.